Today we're going to talk about ghosting. We're going to talk about why it happens and how you can keep it from happening. So stick around. Hey everybody, welcome. If this is your first time here, my name is Roy, and on this channel we talk mostly about sublimation and lasers. Today we're going to talk about sublimation. Most specifically, we're going to talk about ghosting. Now, before we get into talking about ghosting, let's talk about what sublimation is. I'm sure everybody knows this, but sublimation is the process of taking a solid and turning it directly into a gas, bypassing the liquid state. So basically, you have ink put on paper, and when it connects with a polymer coating, at about 350 degrees, it will turn from a solid state to a gaseous state. And so that's how we do sublimation. Now what happens is that paper is 350 plus degrees, and that polymer surface is 350 plus degrees. We'll say for conversation, let's say it's a tumbler. So you have a tumbler and you have paper. At 350 degrees, that gas begins to form, right? If I remove that paper quickly while it's still at around 350 degrees or more and turn it, that's what's going to cause ghosting. Same with a piece of paper on a heat press. If I take that paper, it's 350 degrees, and I pull that press up real quick and that paper moves, that will cause ghosting. Some people misuse the word ghosting. Every once in a while I'll see where somebody has a tumbler and the top of it, maybe the background of the tumbler is a dark color and the top or bottom is not quite as dark, and they call that ghosting. That's not ghosting. It's actually more than likely that their paper wasn't flat against the tumbler, and or they might not have had enough heat at the edge of the tumbler. Maybe their heat press wasn't as hot. The heating element wasn't as hot on the edge. So, but that's not ghosting. And you can tell ghosting because usually there is an image, and usually there's a very faint image just beside it where the paper has shifted a little bit. I find, let's see if I've got this here. I find that here is an image that I'll occasionally put on a tumbler that is very easy to ghost because it's just solid black lines and text on a white tumbler. So if I pull this out quickly and it moves, it's going to cause ghosting. As a matter of fact, most of my tumblers, when I take them out of the press, I give them about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to cool before I take the paper off. With these, I at least double that time. I give them 4 or 5 minutes just till it's cool enough that I can pick it up by my hand, because this is where ghosting happens on this type of design. It'll happen on a lot. I've had it happen on when I do socks. The little black edges of the socks, you'll be able to see that it's shifted, the paper shifted or adjusted a little bit. So that's what ghosting is. We now know what causes ghosting. How do we fix ghosting? And it depends on what we're talking about. There are two major types of things that you would sublimate: hard substrates and soft substrates. So I consider the hard substrates tumblers and coffee mugs and things like that. And then the soft substrates are towels, shirts, cloth, anything cloth, or even like a heavy canvas, anything that's soft like that. So hard and soft materials, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about ghosting on both of those. For tumblers, we want to make sure that the tumbler has cooled a little bit. I've said this before, and I will say it again. Please do not dunk your tumbler or coffee mug or anything else that's 350 plus degrees into any type of water: hot water, cold water, lukewarm water. Please don't do it, because coffee mugs can crack and you can't even see that crack. And you really don't want to have a friend or a customer 2 weeks later be drinking coffee and the thing break and get hot coffee all over them. And the same thing with tumblers. Tumblers are double walled. So there's a layer between an outer and an inner piece of steel, and that air is sucked out. And that's what causes it to be able to retain heat, but you not feel it on the outside, or to be really cold, but you not feel it cold on the outside. But if that seal is broken up at the bottom, then it's not going to work. It's not going to do that. And you won't know that. So please, 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 I encourage you, do not dunk your tumblers or your coffee mugs into water. Set them aside for a minute and let them cool down. We have a Facebook group. I do encourage you, if you'd like to be able to talk back and forth to a lot of really smart people in the sublimation world, join the group. You do have to answer a couple of questions and agree to the group rules. We also have a laser channel as well, so if you're into lasering, definitely join that one as well. But this video came about because one of the Facebook group members, Michelle Ray, mentioned that she was having a problem with sublimating koozies, the neoprene koozies. And I got to thinking about it, and while I have never done a neoprene koozie until today, I think I know why it's probably happening and how we can correct it. So we'll come back to the tumblers in a few minutes, but I want to talk about the koozies, and we're going to see if we can press one and see if we can get it to ghost, and then we're going to see if we can press one using a couple of techniques to keep it from ghosting. So let me turn on this heat press so we can get to it. I have the heat press on. It's registered at 386, which pulls about 400 degrees on this press. And then I'm going to do 45 seconds. I've not done enough research to know if that's correct or not, but we're going to try that. So here's my koozie. I want to make sure that I'm doing this. There's a little teeny spot on it right there, but that's okay because my goal is to make this ghost. We're going to do two sides. The first side I'm going to try to make ghost, and then the second side we're going to try not to. So I'm going to set this thing down. I will do a little bit of a pre-press. I do want to do a little bit of a pre-press, probably 10 seconds. There we go. Okay, let's try that, okay? Let's put this on here, and we're going to try to make it ghost. I'll set this on here. Is that good? Set this on here, and we're going to drop it down for 45 seconds. It's not a lot of pressure. Should have a little bit more, but we're going to see what happens. And what I'm going to try to do is pull this press up pretty fast in order to get that paper to shift a little bit and see if it ghosts. 2, 1, and let's pop it up and slide it a little bit. All right, let's see what happened. Yep, there we go. You see that? It ghosted right there. And that's what we thought would happen based on what we did. And that can be very annoying. So now we're going to try to do this side without ghosting. And I think there are a couple of different things that we can do. One is to pre-press this a little bit tighter to squish it down a little bit more. Because I believe what's happening is the foam is causing the release of the foam, the expansion of the foam is causing the paper to move. And that was a nice little pre-press, wasn't it? And because of that, it's going to have a better chance of ghosting. So what we're going to do, let me get this out. I've got another one here I want to cut down. I had these situated so that I could put them on opposite sides, but we don't want to do that right now. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to use I've got two types of tape. I'm going to use my wider tape, and I'm going to tape down the sides onto the koozie and onto this paper. Okay, and I'm going to put it not crazy tight, but pretty tight because I don't want it to move. Okay. Now, technically, I could have caused a little ghosting because that koozie is a little bit warm, but I think we're okay. So this time, we're going to drop it down. Let me take a little bit of the pressure off, and we're going to see what happens. Now, this time, when it's time to release it, I'm going to be very, very, very careful as I release this press. Come up very, very slowly so I'm not causing the paper to move any. And I'm going to let it sit for about 10 or 15 seconds. And by doing that, I'm letting that koozie and the paper drop below 350 degrees. Because if they're at 350 degrees and that paper moves any, it's going to cause the ghosting. So what do you think? Is that enough time? When I'm doing a design that is mostly text or just like black and white, I will definitely wait a little bit longer before I pull that paper because I want to make sure that it's gotten down. And even then when I pull the paper, I am very, very careful. Now, This should be okay. I'm going to hold this down right here. I'm going to lift this. I'm going to lift this, and then I'm going to pull that off. And as you can see, there is no ghosting. Now, what you can see is the line where that paper was. So in order to correct that, I would just make sure that my paper is larger. I think that was already on there. My paper is larger than my koozie, right? So here's the koozie. It worked fine when we took our time and released it very slowly and also taped it really well. And here it was when we yanked the thing off. You know what? We're going to try one more method of doing this. We're going to try something a little different with this koozie in just a second. But before we do, let's talk about the tumbler. So safety first. Whenever I'm not recording, I use this. So you should have some sort of protection for breathing air. I have this old little pot holder here, and then I always have a piece of wood on the table so I don't mess up my actual table. I have a larger one that I normally use, but I figured this would be fine now. I have two different size gloves. I guess we'll talk about that later. This one is not as easy to get on and off. This one's easier to get on and off, and that's kind of why I settled to them. So this is our first tumbler. I have it up very high for a reason, but we're going to make this ghost, okay? So I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to, actually, you know what I need to do so I can see how my rotation's going to go? I need to put a little piece of tape on the bottom to know where that seam is. So we're going to put it in 365 degrees for 50 seconds, rotate it 180 degrees. We'll do another 50 seconds, rotate it 90 degrees. 90 degrees, we'll do it 25 seconds, then rotate it 180 degrees for a final 25. What we are going to do though is we're going to peel that thing as soon as it comes out. So stick around. So I'm going to take this paper off as quickly as possible. We're going to watch it ghost. Get this thing off, and let's peel it, and look at there. It's hot. So that ghosted quite well. This is the exact definition of ghosting. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another one similar, and we're going to have it not ghost. And notice this first one, I only wrapped it a little bit. This one, I didn't need to wrap the seam, but I wrapped the top and the bottom. And the reason I did that is I don't want this paper to shift. And if I only did a piece of tape here, there's a really good chance that this would loosen up or that the paper would shift. So we've made sure to put tape on the top and the bottom. And also, I love this tape. I often put it directly on my substrate, and I don't ever have an issue. So let's do this one. You know what? I forgot to put the little piece on the bottom to make sure I knew where I was turning it. There's our piece on the bottom. Let's put this thing in, and if I can get my glove on, let me put this in, and we'll be back in 150 seconds. I gotta tell you, I feel drunk looking at this thing. Definitely ghosting. Okay, so we're gonna take this out, and it's been 150 seconds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down, and I'm going to let it set for about 4 minutes before I take that paper off to let it really cool down. That is going to be a big part of eliminating the ghosting when it comes to tumblers. And then I also need this to cool down a little bit because we're going to test something with that koozie. So I'll be back in 5 minutes, or 6 seconds to you. So it's been about 4 minutes, but we're going to leave that tumbler just like it is for now. There's no rush. I'll actually set it aside over here. Here's our drunk one that I'm actually going to use. You may be wondering, why did I put this design so high up? Because we want to test something here with the koozie. I did want to mention that I am using the Eenour tumbler press. I did a review on it, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, and I have literally used no other press, just this one. I absolutely love it. I'm very surprised too. So what we're going to do is, if you haven't figured it out, we're going to try to wrap a koozie and put it in a heat press, in a tumbler press. So here's the one that we did that we ghosted. I'm going to put the koozie on here. Now, one thing I noticed, I already talked about my temperature, time, and rotation. One thing I did notice when I first put this in here, I haven't done this yet. I did take it a minute ago and let this cool down and make the pressure looser so that this would fit and not really smash it. And I did notice that when I put it in, it pinched the edge of this. So I'm going to attempt to not rotate it and just do one straight 120-second shot and see what happens. Who knows? This koozie might be completely shot by the time I am able to get it finished. I'm putting the design between the, well, is that good? I should have moved the design. I did the design based on the size of a tumbler, and it should have been a little bit bigger because of the width of the koozie. And it's really going to be important that I tape this down well because I don't want it to move when it comes out. So let me tape it real quick. Okay, it is taped up, and we're going to give this a shot. You know, the paper is actually pinching a little bit as I'm trying to get it wrapped in there, so I have no idea how this is going to work. I am going to loosen this a little bit more. Let's put this in here, and let's see what happens. Fingers crossed, right? All right, let me slide that in. And we're off. I'm not sure if there's any of the design here at this open space. If there is, there's a chance that it won't sublimate, but we will see in 104 seconds. So I will tell you something that I didn't do and should have. I should have wrapped that tumbler with the ghosted image because there's a good chance that some of that ink is now going to get on my press. All right, so I'm not going to do anything with this for a few minutes. I'm going to let it cool down as well. But you know what we can do? Let me turn this off. It doesn't look like anything got on it, but I'll probably be careful for a while. Again, this press has really blown me away. All right, so what are we going to do? This is, let's shift this around just a little bit. And let's do the tumbler that we are hoping won't ghost, right? And I'm sure it won't. Why? Because, well, I've had it happen enough to figure it out. So I normally love peeling the tape hot, but leaving the paper on for a couple of minutes to let it cool down. And this is one of those times I don't touch the paper, I don't touch the tape at all. But now that it's cool, that's one reason why I put little teeny tabs on the tape so I could easily peel it. But I'm certain it's not gonna ghost because it's cool now. It's cool to the touch, so this paper is not gonna give off any gas. And there you have it. So there's your dark image, black text on a white tumbler. By the way, if I'm doing a coffee mug, normally because the ceramic tends to, or whatever the coffee mug's made out of, porcelain, tends to take a lot longer to cool down. So I normally wait about 3 minutes before I remove the paper from a coffee mug. When I've got an image like this, I usually give it 6 or 7 minutes, maybe even sometimes 8 minutes. Please, again, do not dunk anything, please. All right, so I'm gonna let this sit for just a few more minutes. I'm very curious to see what may or may not have happened. So we'll be back in a minute. I did want to point out that I forgot to use the lint roller on the koozie, and you should use a lint roller when you're doing a koozie. I do not do anything with my tumblers. The only thing, I've got a piece of clean, doesn't look clean, but a piece of clean cloth that when I get it out of the box, I hold it like this, I do this, and that's it. That's worked flawlessly for me. So I don't put alcohol on it. I don't do anything other than that little wipe. Okay, so I'm curious to see how this will turn out. There is enough ripple in the paper that I'm pretty sure it's not going to come out the way that I would like for it to. But you know what? We live and learn. And I think that there might be a way to do something like this. I just have to experiment with it a little bit more. I probably should have done that before the video, huh? Okay, it actually came out really good, except for, remember I told you I wasn't sure if the edge was getting sublimated, and it wasn't. You can see that right there. But with the exception of that, this entire design came out wonderfully with zero ghosting on the koozie. And it's surprising because you can see a little bit of a ripple right there, but nothing overlapped. I did have very light pressure, and if I did this again, and I probably will, I got a package of koozies, so I guess I need to. When I do this again, I'll do this design for Father's Day, and I will make it a little bit smaller. If I make it a 1/2 inch smaller, it'll still look fantastic. Maybe even 3/4 inch smaller. It'll still look fantastic, and I can fit that whole thing on the inside the heating element. But I think it came out quite well considering I didn't know what I was doing. So that's ghosting in a nutshell, and this is our great example right here. Let me move this out of the way. Not ghosting, ghosting. Not ghosting. Wait. There's more. Ghosting, not ghosting. So when you're doing a koozie, you want to make sure that you tape it. If you're doing it in a heat press, you want to make sure that you tape it down really well. I originally was going to do both sides at once, and moving forward, I will probably do my koozies in the heat press. I will do one side at a time. And because of the way koozies are built with the little rims, it'll be easy to align each one up so where I won't have to worry about it. I also will make sure that my paper is large enough to not cause those creases in the neoprene. So that's ghosting. I hope it helped a little bit. I thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to this channel, definitely do that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and definitely click the notification bell so you'll know when new videos are released. All that really, really, really helps the channel. So I'd appreciate it if you could do those 3 things. And again, we have a Facebook group for sublimation and one for lasers. And our next video that'll be out in a week or so will be about lasers, but I'm not going to tell you what. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Have a fantastic day. As canvas. Have a fantastic day. Polymer. Did I forget anything?